Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is for those who are new here, a channel about cross stitch and other things that I do. That's why it's not Melissa Cross Stitches, it's Melissa Does the Things. I do a lot of things. Golly, that's not cute, but whatever, I don't care. Today I want to hop on and talk a little bit about the Bob Durst case because there's been some news and we all know how I feel about Robert Durst. So this is kind of a crime and stitch with me, whatever, get out your stitching. Come hang out for a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of revisit the whole thing maybe in more of a comprehensive manner. I'm trying to get a page finished today, and so I'm hoping that this will help. I'm stitching on Train of Dreams, art by Randall Spangler, and charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I'm very passionate about Heaven and Earth Designs. These are pretty much all I'm going to be doing for a while until I start like Christmas gifts, but I'm trying to get this one done like ASAP, I guess. Also, sorry if you can hear my son. This is just kind of like we're hanging out, whatever, it don't matter. So Robert Durst was born on April 12th, 1943, so he's like 78 years old, I think. He was born in New York City, New York. He, let's see. He grew up in like this family, and they own a lot of like, I guess they're real estate families. He was the oldest child, and so like essentially thinking like he was supposed to take over the family business. Well, that's not really how that went because he didn't really like the family business, but whatever. He went to Lehigh University and studied economics. He graduated in 65 and he went to UCLA, and that's where he met Susan Berman. Susan Berman was actually going to college when she found out that her dad was like a famous mobster. She didn't know her entire life. And eventually he went back to New York and he met Kathleen McCormick. And she was pretty smitten with him. Like, she thought he was pretty cute and she was very excited. She was a dental hygienist and she wanted to go to med school. Very intelligent, beautiful girl. And, you know, she just seems very sweet. He kind of sporadically started working at the Durst organization across these years, but honestly, from what I've heard, like he wanted to open a health food store in Vermont, and Kathy was very much supportive. I dropped my 939. But Kathy was very supportive of that, so they were trying to figure out how to do that. But by 1981, the marriage was like on the rocks. They got married, and he was very like controlling and abusive. And from what he said on the Jinx, like they got physical a lot. Like he, it just their fights would escalate, and he made her, at one point she got pregnant. She thought she didn't want kids because he didn't want kids, and they had talked about it. Well, then she decided when she got pregnant that she wanted to keep it, and he was like, well, you keep the baby, but we're gonna get a divorce if that's the case. And she didn't really, I guess, kind of like in the 70s and 80s, divorce wasn't as widespread as it is today, but like I'd pick my kids over a marriage. I can honestly say that, but like, if somebody gave me an ultimatum, I personally, like, I'm not trying to get into politics. Like, I feel like it's your choice what you want to do. I personally would not be able to, go through with like that part of that process. And so, man, that bled. Sorry, I poked myself with a needle and it bled. But, he was very controlling and very abusive. And I don't think Kathy, like, I think she was scared to leave. Like, I feel like in that position, she was just scared. So I'm looking at like Britannica.com to get like my supplemental information. Where are my scissors? My scissors on this table. Do you guys ever do that where you just lose stuff? But anyway, on January 31st, 1982, excuse me, it was right before she was supposed to have graduated med school, which is heartbreaking. Like, she was working really hard to get that done. Kathleen disappeared. Like, they didn't know where she was. Bob didn't report her missing until February 5th, but what he said is he took his wife to the train station so she could go back to the city, because she had like I want to say like clinicals from what it sounds like. She had clinicals in the morning. Um, and, you know, a lot of people said that they talked to her after she got to Manhattan. They had spent the weekend in Oregon or Massachusetts. I don't know, Massachusetts probably. Um, in their house in South Salem. Um, Bob said he didn't have, you know, anything to do with her disappearing, and his account changed like a lot of times during all the media trying to figure out like where's Kathy, you know, like the paparazzi and stuff, because they're a big family. During all that, Susan Berman kind of stepped in and was his spokesperson to help him negate the paparazzi looking at them. Sorry, I'm looking for my thread and I know where it is, but I'm trying to talk at the same time, so it's not helping me. So also my son's home, and so we're watching marbles. He's very excited about marble races. So if you know any other channels that do marble races, he's very into them right now. It's pretty much all we watch. I need 920. I don't need 919. I didn't organize these and I just threw them all in here. Do you ever do that where like you just throw all your thread in one spot? I do this thing where when I'm stitching sometimes I like to see all the threads that I've worked with through the day, and from there I'll just like leave them all out and then I'll try to reorganize them. Well, this time I didn't do that. I just definitely threw them all back in here haphazardly, and I don't like it, and then probably you might end up seeing me have some anxiety problems later. Anyway, Kathy's case eventually went cold. They didn't have leads, they didn't have a body, they didn't know anything. Bob stayed with his family business until 1994, and at that time, it just, like, from all accounts, he wasn't really showing up for work, he wasn't really, you know, doing his part, and they gave the business to his brother, who seemed more passionate about it, Doug. Aha, I found it. For the rest of the 90s, he lived, you know, all over the place, and he remarried in 2000 to Deborah. In November that year, there was like reports that Janine Pirro was going to reopen Kathy's case, and that he didn't like. Well, I mean, I don't know if he didn't like it, but he just, I guess that probably worried him a little bit, right? Because like he was a suspect and he doesn't remember what he did or what he probably said to police. You know, he thought it was done. And so he moved to Galveston, Texas, and he rented an apartment as this woman, and he used the name of his old classmate, Dorothy Steiner. And he went out and he bought like a dress and like women's clothes and a bag, and then he pretended he was like deaf or a mute, because he couldn't talk because his voice is very like, I don't know if any of you watch or listen to True Crime Obsessed, but they did Patreon coverage of the Jinx, and Jillian Pensavagli's her Bob Durst impression is pretty on point. It's just okay, bye bye, but it's so funny. I don't know, just he's weird, and so he rented a cheap apartment. And about a month after he rented that apartment, he was talking to his old friend Susan. I mentioned her earlier. She was the mobster's daughter, and she met him at UCLA, and they were like besties. About a month later, the police were about to talk to her, and she had asked him, like, if it was okay if he talked to police. You what? Hang on, I'm sorry. Let me pause. I needed a different video on. But, yeah, they were besties, and she, like, acted as his spokesperson, and she did a lot for him. And he gave her a lot of money, too, like, to help her with her various projects. She was trying to write screenplays, and she wanted to make a living that way. And, about a month later, she was, found shot execution style in her apartment. I guess it wasn't really an apartment, but it was like a house. And the day that they discovered her body, it was because like a neighbor called and was like, her dogs are out and she never leaves her dogs out. Like, what's going on? And they got a letter and it said, like, it listed her address, where Beverly was spelled wrong because she lived in Beverly Hills. And, it just said cadaver. And so, that was, suspicious. That was, to quote Bailey Sarian, that was suspicious. And I am not a fan of that. Like, I think Susan deserves so much more, and her little puppies didn't even know what happened. You want some waffle? And, Bob Durst, like, was in California, but, like... What?
I can pop it.
You want a Pop-Tart? How about you finish that first? Anyway, so he lived there, and I guess from what he said on the Jinx, he made friends with the neighbor and eventually told him what was going on, like that he wasn't really a woman and all this stuff and whatever. And he said that he came home and his neighbor Morris was in his apartment watching TV. He was mad because he was getting an eviction notice. And from what Bob said, he like shot the eviction notice in Bob's apartment, and Bob was like, get out of here. Like, what are you doing? Bob said they wrestled over the gun and the gun went off, and it hit Morris. And Bob then, this gets graphic, I apologize, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but he dismembered him, like his buddy, his friend, right, his only friend in Texas. He dismembered him and put his body parts in, like, trash bags and took him out to the bay. And what's crazy about that is that's how, like, the Jinx documentary opens, right? They found, like, these bags in the bay, and I didn't realize that Susan died before that. Like, I thought it was after, but it wasn't, so that's kind of crazy, that timeline of events. They were, like, looking through these garbage bags, and because he's an idiot, and honestly, if he, like, people get nervous about, like, saying stuff like this, but if he watches this, I'll be impressed. And he got convicted of Susan's murder recently. Spoiler, sorry. But, like, he deserves it. And he's an idiot. He left this, receipt for glasses in one of the garbage bags with Morris's body. And so... because he did that, they went to the glasses place, and the lady was like, oh, yeah, I know who this is. It said Bob Durst on it. And he was like, yeah, he was supposed to pick up his glasses or whatever. And the detective was like, okay, well, here's my pager number. If he comes in to pick up those glasses, you page me. And, like, he had left and done, I don't think very much else, but he got paged, like, almost right away. And as he's pulling back into the glasses shop, Bob is pulling out, and he sees him. So they pull him over, and they find a hacksaw in the back of his car.